I made a video there in January 2022. It's on my YouTube channel. Have a look at it. It's called "Shop Customer Who Refused to Wear a Mask Loses 2 Discrimination Claims at the WRC." This is one of those discrimination claims based on some form of discrimination that's been claimed by the complainant on foot of their refusal to wear a face mask during the COVID-19 pandemic situation. That particular video in January of 2022 prompted quite a bit of commentary. A lot of it was absolutely nonsensical, juju, sort of law commentary from lads claiming to understand the law and being shocked by this decision and so forth. There's another decision there just recently involving a discrimination claim over the non-wearing of a mask in a Galway hardware shop. The claim was brought by a Mr. Carberry, Bernard Carberry, and he basically brought the claim that he was being discriminated against by the hardware shop because of his refusal to wear a mask. He claimed that he was exempt from the requirement to wear a mask. The adjudication officer, Janet Hughes, said that continuing with the hearing would be a waste of time for all concerned. Mr. Carberry claimed that there was a burden of proof on the firm to prove face coverings stopped the spread of virus and demanded the retailer produce no less than peer-reviewed studies to prove it. He told the WRC that he went to the hardware shop to get some parts to fix a lavatory at home, and a difficulty arose then when the store's COVID officer spoke to him about wearing a mask, etc., and pointed out that he needed to wear a mask. The manager then asked him, when Mr. Carberry claimed that he was exempt, for proof of his exemption, and Mr. Carberry said he did not have to provide. So Mr. Carberry represented himself at the hearing, and he claimed that it was embarrassing and humiliating as it happened in front of others, and said his health and safety was a risk if he was forced to wear a mask. But he was basically trying to put the burden of proof on the hardware shop to justify the public health regulations and guidelines that were brought in. The hardware store's position was that it was operating as an essential retailer during the pandemic and had spoken to staff to reassure them it would strictly enforce the public health guidelines. It was submitted then that Mr. Carberry failed to enter through the front door, went into the delivery's entrance, refused to put on a mask when he was asked to do so by a security worker. So a manager then asked for confirmation from Mr. Carberry about the claimed medical exemption, but he refused to give it. Mr. Carberry was asked by a staff member to stop recording the incident on his phone. The company argued that Mr. Carberry would have to prove he had a disability in order to take a complaint under the Equal Status Act, and at no juncture did the complainant explain what condition renders him medically unable to wear a face covering. The solicitor for the hardware store made the point that if somebody could simply say, as a matter of fact, that they were exempt, then the whole population could take that view and simply say, "I'm exempt," without providing any evidence. So the adjudicator agreed and said a statement, "I have an exemption," is a statement of fact suggesting that it has been approved by someone, and the respondent merely sought evidence of that statement of fact. Ms. Hughes wrote, and that's the adjudication officer. She noted that Mr. Carberry had refused again to provide evidence for this at the hearing, even when she suggested anonymising the decision. The response was no and no. He stated that he was not in a position to provide medical evidence and he was not prepared to do so. Ms. Hughes then, the adjudication officer, wrote that there was no point in continuing, as there was no possibility that his claim of discrimination on grounds of a disability could succeed. To continue the hearing would be a waste of time for all concerned, she added, and ruled Mr. Carberry's complaint was not well founded. There's a lot of people out there with the belief that simply stating something allows you to advance a case or a claim. simply stating something is evidence. It's not. Simply claiming that I am exempt is not enough. You must show the basis on which you are exempt if you're claiming an exemption in any situation. But you simply can't say, I'm exempt, and leave it at that. This, as I say, is another WRC case, a discrimination claim that failed abjectly, with the WRC officer holding that it would have been a complete waste of time for all concerned to continue with the hearing. So that's another one of those cases. You can have a look at the other one as well on my YouTube channel. But simply stating something or claiming something isn't enough. Those who accuse must prove. Those who make a claim or advance some sort of a legal cause of action or claim must generally prove their case, and at the very least get it out of the starting blocks by showing prima facie grounds of discrimination. But the only way that this gentleman could have been discriminated against would have been if he could have shown that he was indeed exempt, and he was exempt on the grounds of some exemption, some medical reason perhaps, and on that basis then the shop could be accused of discriminating against him as a person with a disability. But at no stage, either in the hardware store or at the WRC, did he give any evidence or any explanation, and refused to, as to why he was exempt. As I say, simply stating something, I'm exempt, or the earth is flat, isn't enough.